They were thrown into the spotlight after some of their bats were 3, 2, 1. They were thrown into the spotlight after some of their bats were traded for a professional baseball player. I'm Nicole Weisberg, and on this episode of Live to Tape, we'll talk to one of the men behind the Prairie Sticks Bat Company, and we'll also talk to a local luthier who makes beautiful instruments. We're talking to Jared Greenberg, and he's one of the co-owners of the Prairie Sticks Bat Company, Inc. here in Red Deer. And you guys got some media attention first off because a player was actually traded for some of your bats. Is that right?
Yeah, actually it was about a year ago this time that a player down in Calgary was traded for 10 of our bats, and we gained national and international media attention. So it's been almost a year, and I think the wave is done, but we've had some good publicity out of it, and definitely there's been some changes because of it.
Okay, and why did you decide to start a company like this?
Being a baseball player, I guess the passion to be self-employed and not have a 9-to-5 gig was, kind of appealing to me, and this was kind of the outlet that I chose.
And how many people make bats? I mean, it seems like is this quite common for someone in each city to have a company like this, or?
No, I think it's quite uncommon, actually. I think over the past several years, it's become a little more popular to do it, and people have, started their own companies. But as far as I know, we are the only company in Western Canada to be doing it. There's 2 or 3 in the eastern part of the country, and there's probably between 25 and 30 in the U.S.
Wow. So, do professional baseball players use these bats?
Yeah, like the ones that you're looking at right there, actually going to the same Calgary team that traded for the bats, and actually some of them are going up to the team in Edmonton for a Mother's Day promotion. They're going to be painted pink for breast cancer awareness. So, yeah.
So is it easy to make professional bats?
Well, it might look professional today or easy today, but it's been 7 long years in the making, and different steps, different types of equipment changes, different ideas, and just getting it to the final product it is today has been a lot of work. So it might look easy today, but there's been a lot of work put into it.
Yeah. So talk about the equipment that you have here that you use to make these bats.
Okay. This here is a hydraulic copy lathe. Basically, it can measure to within 1,000th or 2,000ths of an inch. It's a high precision lathe that on average can make between 12 and 15 bats an hour. So over the course of the day, it'd be easy to make 100, 120 bats.
Wow. And then you obviously have to, finish them off sort of thing. How long does that take?
Well, we used, we changed stains last year, so we use a water-based type stain that only takes about 3 or 4 hours to dry. So we use a dipping process. They're all in tubes and just dip bats in, and basically they hang to dry. So it's relatively easy and not very, work intense.
Okay.
Sit there and paint them with a paintbrush or anything like that.
Okay. So, did you ever have any experience doing any kind of this stuff before?
No. No, I didn't. It was just, a huge learning curve, starting off on a little hand lathe and working up to another type of copy lathe, and then finally something like this where literally you can sit down in a chair, press a button, and, be at work. So
any deformed bats at the beginning?
Yeah, there's a lot of deformed bats. There's a lot of bats with cracks and knots in it that are unsellable.
So what would be the highest end bat that you guys make?
Well, we do mostly maple, and that's the hardest type of wood that we offer, and it's generally still the most popular throughout the game. And with Barry Bonds, breaking the home run records a few years ago, that's where the maple bat boom kind of took off. So
the different wood actually makes a difference in, play.
Yeah, we offer 3 types. We offer maple, birch, and ash, and each of them have different types of properties. Ash being the softest, birch kind of being the middle, and the maple being the hardest, and each feel a little bit different as you're using them, yeah.
Okay, and say you're making some bats for just kind of a kid's team or something like that. Is there a difference as to how you make them, or how they feel? Would you want a bat that hard?
Yeah, there's no difference to how we make them. They actually get taken. One bat could be going to a professional team, and the next piece of wood right beside could be going to a youth baseball player in Silver Lake or in Lacombe or Red Deer, yeah.
Okay, well, I played baseball for a little bit, so I know that I usually used an aluminum bat.
Right.
So how I mean, how many people use wooden bats? Usually, is that in the professional world, is that what they use more often, or are aluminum bats used too, or I guess what's the difference?
Well, both are still being used, but the trend now is coming back to wood bats. In Baseball Canada, which is kind of the governing body of baseball in our country, the senior program, so the open age category, switched about 2001, and then over time, younger age groups, whether it be junior, midget, and then even some bantam teams are now using wood bats in tournaments. So, it's becoming more and more and less of aluminum.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you, Jared. And coming up after the break, we'll see him make one of these bats. We're talking to Jared today with the Prairie Sticks Bat Company. He's going to show us how he makes one of the bats today. So you start with these, long wooden...
Yeah, we call our billets. Each billet, this one here is made out of birch actually. We weigh all the billets, so this one's 86.5 ounces, and the weight tells us basically what our final weight will be when on a specific model and length, so that's important to know.
Okay. So can it be, do you have specific weights that you usually strive for, or does it really matter?
Yeah, most people want, let's say a 33-inch bat needs to weigh about 31 ounces, somewhere in there.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So do you cut it, just depending on whatever weight it is, you just cut it down to a certain weight?
Yeah, well basically every model has different dimensions, and the starting weight of the billet, depending on the size of the barrel or handle, either weighs more or less, so it needs a heavier or lighter piece of wood. So that's why we weigh them to start with, and then we know when we put it on the lathe how much approximately it will weigh at the end. Okay,
so let's head over to the lathe here. You got something set up, and this is some kind of model that you go off?
These are the templates that we make here. This will sit on the back of the lathe, and there'll be like little fingers that operate the knives that will actually cut the bat. They'll follow this template here, and it'll be the exact model that we want it to be. So
if you wanted to make a new model, could you just tell the machine that you wanted something new, or?
Well, we actually have to make one of these first.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a computer controlled lathe, so we still have to use templates. So not quite at that stage yet.
Okay, and then you just would somehow program it into the machine, or how does that work?
Well, what we would do is take the measurements of the bat and put it on the template, and then cut the template out on like a bandsaw, and then sand it down to make it nice and smooth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to show us what you do now?
Up here. So we'll have the 3 knives. This one here, we'll cut it down to fit through this bushing here, and there'll be 2 knives in the back that actually make the bat. So watch out.
Why am I watching out?
No, you'll have to get covered in sawdust.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Wow. That's so cool. I like the smell of it.
Yeah, this one smells pretty sweet actually. This is the birch here. Right now it's cutting off the most wood within the handle area, and then as we get a little bit closer to the barrel, we can speed up the lathe so it doesn't take quite as long.
So is this thing perfect every time?
Yeah, it'll produce the same thing every time.
And what are you controlling over here?
I'm just controlling the speed with this dial right here. That's all I have to control. So normally I would either be sitting down watching or sanding the bat. So.
leg of a table or something too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose depending on your likes or dislikes, it could be used as a leg of a table.
That would be an interesting table. A custom table with baseball bats.
Yeah, you'd have to have a pretty forgiving wife.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so what's next?
Okay, so normally, like I said, we would sand it, take it off the lathe. We cut off the ends, okay, obviously, to look like a bat, and then we would come over here and weigh the bat on our little scale here. So, depending on, see if we need to cup it out or not.
Okay.
I'll let it reset. So this weighs 33 ounces right now.
Okay.
Okay, so I know I need to cup because it needs to be 32 ounces.
Okay.
So this is our cupping machine. Basically, we got it made for us. It's just a drill press. Throw in this chuck and turn the handle. And this should take out between like 0.8 and an ounce.
Wow.
And this, yeah, it's mostly done for weight, but it balances the bat out a little bit too. It makes it feel a little bit less end heavy.
Really?
So, and that's that.
Okay, and that's that, and that's the end.
That's the end. So
and then
now we have to finish it.
After the break, he's a master at intricate woodworking. We'll talk to this local luthier next. We're talking to Darcy Pizine, and he's a local luthier here in Innisfail. And you have a whole company here, and you make instruments. Talk about what you do.
Well, I started about 6 years ago building guitars. I have a real passion for woodwork. I'm a fourth generation cabinet maker. All the way back to my great-great-grandfather in Germany used to build them. So I've been around wood ever since I was a little kid. Love music. I'm a vocalist, used to have a full-time band. And I wanted to combine the two. So I looked into it and discovered guitar building, and I thought, what the perfect way to do it.
So where do you go to learn how to make guitars?
I actually went to Tagaski, Saskatchewan, just a little small town. It's basically Dog River. And there's a guy out there named Dave Freeman who owns Timeless Instruments, and he teaches this course, 7 weeks, and you come out with a guitar and a diploma. I came home and I built a few medieval instruments, as I'm very passionate about the medieval period and their techniques and their woodworking. They did so much with so little. Mm-hmm. So started researching what they did and how they did things, and just started building from there.
Wow. Okay, so you have a couple of guitars set out here, and you said this is your first guitar you've ever made.
This is the very first one, yeah. This is number one. It's a little O size, which means it's just a small body. The sizing comes from Martin guitars, actually. There's O, double O, triple O, and then the dreadnought, which is what the size most people think of it as a guitar. It's solid back and sides with a solid redwood top. The back and sides is made out of flaming maple, and I can turn that around. And the neck is made out of walnut.
So when you're making a guitar, yeah, like you were saying, there's different woods involved. Is that typical of any guitar?
Yeah. Typically a guitar will have hardwoods on the back and sides and a softwood on top, either spruce or western red cedar, mostly those.
Okay. And how do you feel about it now that you've done it for a few years?
I love it. I still love it.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with the fact that the very first one turned out as well as it did.
I think it's beautiful. And then, okay, talk about this guitar. When did you make this?
That one I actually made in the second course, which was I did immediately afterwards, another 7 weeks. This one is what's called a dobro, or a resonator guitar, and that comes from the resonator cone, which is the silver part. It's a solid walnut body with a mahogany neck, Coca-Cola rosewood bridge, or fretboard is all the same as on the first guitar. Okay. The resonator guitar is actually the first amplified guitar before they came up with the amp.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that looks different than your typical acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Does it sound different?
It sounds way different. I can give you a quick...
Yeah, sure.
That's the typical acoustic, and then got more of a tinny sound, and that comes from the round resonator cone that's just behind that silver plate. It's spun aluminum.
Wow.
And when the strings are vibrating, that cone moves just like on a regular speaker.
And these are very, I mean, I love the detailing on this. How do you do that?
Well, the shamrocks on the body of the dobro I actually just did with a Forstner bit and inlaid the pearl on there. We just slowly chisel it out, and the banding on the outside, actually I'm going to do some banding on this other instrument tonight, and I can show you basically how that's done.
Awesome. And you said the shamrock is
my trademark.
That's your trademark.
Yeah.
So why did you decide that?
Very into my Irish roots. I play the bower on the tin whistle. I sing tons of Irish stuff, and actually that's the band I had was a Celtic band.
And is there any, I mean, can you go overboard when it comes to customization where it like would change the sound of it, or?
You can. If you have too much inlay, you have a hard time, the body of it will have a hard time moving, and you need that movement. There's people out there like Grit Laskin. He's an amazing inlay artist. He does stuff that's mostly on the neck, mostly on the headstocks, but he has done full guitars, but they're mostly art pieces. They're not meant to be played as much. Mass on an instrument will eat up its sound. That's the last thing you want. You don't want a dead sounding instrument. So the less mass, the better.
So it really is, I mean, probably have to pay a lot of attention to how thick the wood is in certain areas. How do you know when it's right?
I have a thickness gauge that I actually, when I'm doing a top, I will put in. It's just a caliper, and put it in to measure exactly how thick it is. I know what thickness I need out at the edges, what I need in the middle, and it's just all part of the trade.
So interesting. Okay, well, after the break, we'll see Darcy work on some instruments and look at his wood collection. So we're talking to Darcy today about making instruments, and he's making a cruth?
Cruth.
Cruth, yeah. And some kind of medieval instrument, is that right?
Yes, it is. It's actually a derivative of the Saxon lyre, which is the forerunner to the harp, as the instrument that we know today. What the Welsh have done is they've added a neck and a fingerboard, and it's bowed like a violin.
Interesting. So what kind of sound does it make?
Oh, it's very neat. It's got some really rich tones to it. Now, this one being so small, it's going to be a higher pitched instrument. It'll sound very much like a dulcimer or a psaltery.
And you have a whole bunch of wood laid out here. What are all these different parts for?
Well, this one right here, this is a spalted fiddleback maple that I'm actually developing in an electric guitar. I've been mostly doing acoustics, but I want to delve into that now because that's such a big market. There's a lot of electric players that won't play an acoustic, so I've decided I want to get into that as well. So I've glued these two pieces up, and I'm going to cut them out and make the basic shape of the guitar and add a neck.
And what kind of wood is that?
It is a spalted fiddleback maple. It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Amazing. And then these are also parts.
These are also parts, yeah. This is also the very same wood. It's cut off of a different piece. It's bound to be a neck one day, not for this particular instrument. I've got a walnut neck that I've got set up for that. And this is Cocobolo rosewood, exceedingly dense and heavy rosewood, which is exactly what I have on those two instruments there. And that's what I'm going to use as the fretboard on this.
Okay. So you have an entire collection of wood. It's insane. Do you need all this wood in order to make these instruments?
My wife says no, but every luthier has. If I had more space, it would be filled with wood, because you never know what you're going to need. You're going to cut off small pieces to do inlay work, like the sun on the first guitar. That's just little pieces of maple that I cut out. You also need the shell if you want to do shell inlays. You never know what you're going to need. You really don't.
And these guitars are so intricate. How long does it really take to make one?
Start to finish, when I did the class, it was 7 weeks, but that also includes class time, pardon me. So in about a month, I can do a guitar.
1 month. Wow. How many hours?
Really, it all depends on the instrument.
Yeah.
Basic guitar, I can spend upwards of 300 or 400 hours plus.
Okay. And how long do you have to go on this one?
This one, I probably got another 80 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. So you're going to do something here, and I'm not sure what, but if you want to go ahead and explain what you're going to do.
Certainly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put what's called a purfling on this, and I'm going to route the channel first, and then I'm going to try and put this in. What this is 2 strips of wood, one black, one white, one black. Okay. And you bend it to the shape and try and form it. Typically on an instrument like this, it wouldn't have been used in period, but I want to dress up this one. On the back, I've inlaid a center strip. And I'm going to go back with some more of this, and along these areas, I'm going to put this in.
Okay, Darcy, go right ahead with that machine of yours.
Now what I'm doing is I'm just routing a small channel that I can inlay that purfling into.
Oh,
I've made that little channel. Now what I'll do is I'll measure this. Okay, it's not deep enough. So I will go a little deeper, cut it to that shape, cut it at a 45 so I can put the nice miter in there. And the same on the other side.
Wow.
And I'll do that for all around the dovetails on here.
I mean, what do you do for the sides here, the edges?
What I'll do on the back here is I won't actually put a binding on the back, but I will on the top, and that's again to help hold the soundboard onto the main body of the instrument itself.
And you're talking about the entire, I guess, putting the whole instrument together and how that is affected by humidity and what's going on, I guess, outside and all that type of thing. Talk about that, how that affects an instrument.
Absolutely, especially on a custom instrument because they're not lacquered like they would be from a factory guitar like a Gibson or a Fender or any of the bigger names. It means the wood is more susceptible to humidity. Don't get me wrong, those instruments are as well, but it's less of an issue. Their bodies are thicker, their tops are heavier. They can take more abuse. You don't want to have warranty issues 3 months into a brand new instrument. So they make them sturdier and stronger. With a custom guitar, handmade, I'll go a lot thinner so I can get a bigger volume, a better sound. I can do more risks.
So would you say that there is better sound with custom guitars?
You know, at the risk of getting sued by the big companies, yes. It's materials, it's the care taken. Factory guitar is literally done on an assembly line, whereas these are made exactly for that person, for their playing style, for their stuff. So.
Okay. And any particular way, if I went and bought a custom guitar, that to take care of it, I suppose?
Yeah. You want to make sure that you have a good solid case. You want a humidifier, which you can buy at any of the music stores. You want to make sure that you keep it well oiled. If you have a lacquer finish, just make sure it's all well wiped after you play it. Really just make sure it stays safe. So keep it in the guitar or in the case. Make sure it's loved, played. That's the biggest thing. You have got to play the instruments. If they're not played, they fall apart.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this episode of Live to Tape. I hope you learned something new, and make sure to tune in next time.